Welcome back to Headgears to Handshakes. I'm here with Bruce Herman from East Penn Manufacturing, the VP of Sales. So really important position, awesome company. And we're just going to talk about wrestling. I mean, how did you get started?
Well, it's kind of funny. I was actually doing Saturday basketball for a period of time, and then my two older brothers started wrestling. And then, of course, I gravitated into the wrestling world then, and thank God I did, right? Because a lot of things that wrestling taught me, I use today in life, you know, and was very successful. Again, my brothers were very good, and then following in their footsteps, I was a two-time PA state qualifier, and my senior year, I placed fourth in state.
Wow, that's impressive. Just so you know, I'm from Florida, and you know, we'd have guys that were multiple-time state champs getting their butts kicked by qualifiers. So just the difference in sort of states. So even, you know, to be able to make it on the stand, I mean, how fulfilling was that at the time?
It was phenomenal. I mean, that was my goal, right? Very important to set goals for yourself. But I set a goal that I wanted to place in states. One thing, though, that I do look back at, you know, I wrestled really good kids. Obviously, everybody in PA State is a very talented wrestler. And I wrestled two very good kids, beat them, and I think I was somewhat satisfied, right? Because now once the top four, you placed in states. And my next two matches, I didn't wrestle very well. You know, it's kind of funny. I always look back and, you know, March is a love-hate relationship, right? Because I love it because it's tournament time for wrestling. But also you re-wrestle all the matches you lost, you know, and that's one of the matches I re-wrestle every year. Every March is my state semifinal match, and it's, I'm sure other wrestlers can relate to it. It's, you don't think about the matches you won, you know, the big matches. You think a lot of the matches you lost, you know, and you just keep wrestling them every year. It's frustrating, but
yeah. I've actually been blessed enough to talk to a lot of really successful wrestlers across every industry, and they always say that's one thing they learned from the sport of wrestling that they bring into their business or their company that has made them, you know, excel, is that it's never good enough. You can always do better. You should never be complacency in what you do, and so it sounds like there's a little bit of that going on there with you.
Absolutely, 100%. You know, and that's why I'm glad, you know, I wrestled. There's a direct correlation between your effort, your work, and it relates direct correlation to how successful you are in business or in whatever you do, right? It teaches you that, you know, the more effort, more work you put into it, the more successful you're going to be. And that's what, you know, I learned, you know, when I got into the working world, to be successful, you know, I relate it, you know, for example, I started in sales. So, you know, when I open up a new customer, you know, that was like a pin to me, right? That was like a win to me, you know. So that's kind of what I carried over, and I realized, you know, the longer I work, the more hours I put in, the more wins I'll have. So there was a correlation there, you know, that I learned.
Yeah, and I've, you know, certainly you've worked your way up to a phenomenal company. I mean, are there certain positions within your company where you say, man, that makes total sense for a wrestler to do because it's just, maybe there's a lot of turnover or it's really tough? Are there certain positions where you think wrestlers fit in really well?
Well, again, I'm biased to the sales side of it. So I think I would hire all wrestlers for sales because I think they're determined, you know, and they don't quit. You know, they're going to be persistent. You know, they understand, you know, they're used to, you know, you're not going to win every match, right? So you got to learn to get back up and go back into that customer, you know. So, you know, I would take wrestlers in the sales all day long, you know, and it's kind of funny, our culture, there's a lot of, you know, part of the DNA is a lot of wrestling oriented. You know, for example, our past CEO was Dan Langdon, and he's on the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, or in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, and he was one of the best officials. He officiated for like 44 years. But anyway, I think he purposely hired a lot of wrestlers and some of those wrestlers now are high up in the company. We have our CEO that has a background in wrestling, our COO, wrestled at Parkland for a couple years, and again, there's a lot of vice presidents that have a wrestling background. I have done very well at East Penn. So.
And I think that's probably why that growth has happened with the company. But just for people that might not know, and I know because I've looked into it a little bit, and it's a massive company. I mean, just wildly successful. Would you mind just telling everybody a little bit about it?
Sure. East Penn, this year, we're going to be celebrating 80 years of business. And I'm blessed to be a part of East Penn. I mean, this October, it'll be 39 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
So thank you. But it's been a great 39 years. I had a lot of different promotions throughout the year. And, but it's family owned and operated. And, they care about their people. They care about putting out the best product possible. And we manufacture automotive, industrial, and commercial batteries. And, again, throughout my career, I had different jobs. Worked off of a route truck. That was my humble beginnings. I sold batteries off of a route truck, and then eventually was promoted to what they call city sales, then sales manager, then national sales manager, assistant vice president. So it's been a fun ride, but again, it's just been a great company, and it's fun to be a part of.
So let's say I'm a wrestler. I'm looking at your company. I said, okay, this is a huge business. There's a lot of wrestling people involved. I'd like to work my way up. What does that look like for somebody if they're looking at your company and they want to get involved and they want to know what their future could be like with that company?
Again, and I'm looking forward to the job fair, by the way, that, we're going to be participating in because, obviously we'll get a lot of interest there. And what's nice about, with East Penn, we have 42 company-owned warehouses throughout U.S. and Canada. So again, if a wrestler's in a certain part of the country, we could be looking for a territory sales rep, and that would fit in nice in that area. They don't have to, move back to Lion Station, Pennsylvania. So there's a lot of opportunities throughout, PA and U.S. and Canada. But not only that, outside, we're all leading on different technologies. We bought a company, Navitas, in Michigan that is starting to get into lithium. So there's a lot of new technologies. We have our own lab. So we're looking for a lot of engineers. There's a lot of logistics. We own our logistics, as far as the distribution of batteries throughout U.S. and Canada. So there's a lot of different things, depending on what what they want to go and what their careers are going to be. There's a lot of opportunities, within East Penn.
That's great. Is there certain areas where you say, this is where I would really like to try to target? And again, I know you could take anyone from anywhere if they're the right person, but are there certain areas where you would really like to see some growth?
Again, we're looking for good people everywhere.
That's right. Well, you're going to come to the right place with wrestlers. I mean, the hardest workers. Are there people that have worked under you? Because I know you've talked about a lot of the leadership within the company. Are there people, wrestlers that you've hired that have been successful?
Yes, there's been a few, as a matter of fact, that came up through that worked underneath me. And, of course, they branched out, did other things. They were promoted in different, areas. Retail, is one part of the wholesale division, and then there's the OES, because we do some original equipment. We're tied in with them, and they would go over there. So yes, there's a couple, wrestlers that were successful at East Penn that moved up through the company, through different departments within the company.
Has there been any connections made through wrestling with outside companies that have led to some different business ventures of yours? Has any of that opportunities happened within East Penn?
Well, again, being in sales, and, I manage, it's the wholesale division. So there's probably about 400 different customers that I manage, through what we call program groups. But a lot of those, of course, you wrestling somehow always comes up in the conversation, right? I'm always bragging on Penn State, you know. And
Oh,
all
we got
this,
some Penn State fans in here.
exactly. So it's pretty impressive what Kale's doing there, and
Yeah.
you know, and it's always, you know, very impressive too to see, you know, the Pennsylvania wrestlers doing very well, you know, and I like to follow them through their career. But obviously, you know, a lot of these customers, you know, that I'm dealing with, you know, I'm talking about wrestling, and you know, it's amazing the connection you have, you know, when you meet another, you know, customer or a potential customer, you know, that has that background in wrestling. You have that immediate connection,
Yeah.
you know,
And there's a little bit of a trust, right? Like you guys have a similar understanding, and there's just this level of trust and a brotherhood of you guys understand each other. I think that comes from the sport of wrestling.
yep, without a doubt,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, if you did it, you know, everybody understands, you know, it is by far the hardest sport, you know, there is, without a doubt, hands down. You know, just the, you know, the commitment level, just the conditioning side of it, the weight training side, you know, which I wasn't very good at. You know, I would, you know, things have gotten a lot better, right? You know, back in the day, you drop 10 pounds,
Spitting in a cup and doing all that
water
stuff,
pills,
right?
and
Yeah.
you know, things that, you know, definitely the wrong way to do it, right? You know, and now it's really good that they have the dissension plan and the checking of the hydration, and they're doing it right, which is, I think,
Yeah.
very important for this.
And just to give a little plug to NWCA, I mean, there were those deaths in the 90s. And so we went from, you know, people perceiving wrestling as this unhealthy, dangerous sport, and the NWCA came in with plans and a lot of the OPC testing and things they do to make sure your body weight's down correctly and you're not cutting weight wrong, has really changed the perception of wrestling. And now we're seen as one of the marquee, you know, physical fitness sports in the nation, which is pretty amazing.
Yes, yes, and you know, very important, right? Because you know, it's important that, you know, some mothers panic, you know, and not concerned, don't want to let their kids wrestle. But you know, I'm actually, now I have two grandsons, and just this week a granddaughter was born. So
Congrats.
so thank you. But you know, now I'm working on developing another generation of wrestlers. You know, but you know, I encourage. I mean, wrestling is just so important because you watch kids, you know, that do sports, like say, you know, hopefully they do other things besides wrestle, play soccer, play baseball. But if they wrestle, you can see how better they are in the other sports.
It does. It translates.
It definitely translates. You know, they're more confident. You know, and it just translates into other sports. So you know, I'm looking forward to you know, training my, I should say the grandsons, but now wrestling, women's wrestling is booming in PA.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in the state tournament, and there's some phenomenal wrestlers, you know, girl wrestlers out there. So, you know, maybe Madison will be a wrestler someday. So.
Maybe get her on the monkey bars. You know,
There you
that's
go.
what I'm doing with my daughter.
That's right. Yep, exactly. So.
Well, I appreciate you giving back to wrestling. I want to rewind a little bit and just talk about your wrestling. What's maybe a favorite memory that you have? It doesn't have to be on the mat. Maybe with a coach.
Like I said, I only think of my losses, right? But you know, I think one of my biggest accomplishments was in college. In high school, I ended my career with 77 wins, and I was seeing all these wrestlers, you know, hitting the 100 win mark. So when I went into college, you know, went to Kutztown University, you know, my goal was to have 100 wins. I set that goal, you know, and I was committed to it, and finished my career with 109 wins, which is a record that still stands today.
Wow.
You know, so I'm pretty proud of that. You know, again, I know all the sacrifice, not only getting your degree, but you know, the commitment level to you know, reaching those goals and committing myself to reach that. So.
That's amazing. I mean, the fact that it hasn't been beaten to this day is you got to be able to hang your hat on that a little bit, right?
Yeah, I'm getting a little nervous. There are two kids right now.
You got an eye on them?
Yeah,
though?
I got an eye on them. You know, they're on pace to break the record.
Oh man,
Gimber twins, and they're on pace to break the record. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I mean, you know,
root for them. We'll root for them.
Right.
Anyways.
I'm
That's
completely
all right.
okay with that. And But then what I do can say over them was, back in the day when I wrestled at Kutztown, it was Division One. Because some of the PA state schools, some of their programs, sports programs, had to go to D1 so they could have more scholarship monies. And wrestling was a program that went to Division One. Right now KU is Division Two.
Got it. So it's changed a little bit.
A little
so
bit.
They have an asterisk if they beat you.
There's a big asterisk, so I'll make sure I have to remind them of that. But it's a big asterisk. But that's to me, obviously besides my family, my wonderful family, as far as going back to wrestling, that is one of my biggest accomplishments.
That's great. And what was the transition like for you from wrestling in Kutztown to having a career? And it's always a hard jump. Like you see people hanging on a long time with wrestling, and it's a tough jump. What was that transition like?
Well, like anything new, right? It's a tough transition getting into the real world, right? But again, I was fortunate to just get right in with East Penn Manufacturing into sales. Just a trainee for a short period of time, but then I had my own sales territory, which again was selling batteries off of route truck. And quickly, I learned, because it's hard work, right? And you're commission based, right? So you're not only delivering, you're bringing the old batteries back, but you're still getting paid on what you sell. So, quickly, I had to make sure that I was organized, of course, the work ethic was there, right? And that's where I took from wrestling. And then again, like setting goals for myself, just like I learned in wrestling, I wanted to have 100 wins. Well, I wanted to open up 20 new accounts. That was, again, I established a goal for myself and realized, what I needed to do to accomplish those goals. And which I did. Obviously, the company recognized that and promoted me, through that. But again, it goes back to my, what I learned in wrestling, of how important it is to be committed, and train hard.
And I love that your company took care of you when you earned it. I think you can't say that about every company out there. And so the fact that you're able to kind of work your way up, and there's been other wrestling people who have clearly done the same thing, because it comes down to, you and I both know, the time you put in was what you get out of it. And so I think that's great about East Penn. Is there, someone at East Penn, maybe that's not even associated with wrestling, that sort of helped, bring you up, and maybe you learned some things from about the business side?
Well, again, I mentioned Dan Langdon, who's on the National Wrestling.
Another wrestler. A wrestler taught you,
right?
even outside of wrestling, teaching you still.
And he, again, was a mentor, to me. And, again, very committed. He was our CEO, right? So, he was very committed, not only to East Penn, but also to the sport of wrestling, which was kind of fun to watch, and 44 years of being a wrestling official. God bless him. As I coach kids through the Bullet Mac Club and my two boys, I wasn't always the best fan, and really respect and admire, officials, because they put up with a lot.
Yeah, it's
they
tough.
put a lot with me.
People forget they're real people. That's the problem.
Right. And I have some not so good moments, but. And we'll just keep them out of this interview for now. But anyway, it's people like Dan were a big influence.
That's great. And I think it's cool that a lot of them were wrestlers that are trying to bring you along. And again, they have a different connection with you than maybe some other people might be able to have with you right away, right?
Yep. Absolutely. They can see. Plus, again, Dan officiated some of my matches, so he knew, what kind of person I was, and how, I never quit, and how hard I worked, how hard I trained, and, outside of that, what I've done for the sport, as far as being the president of the Bullet Mac Club and, mentoring and coaching kids, first grade through sixth grade. And I brought along a picture where, it's a picture of some of the boys I coached, with all the trophies in front of them, because we used to go to summer wrestling tournaments, every weekend. And Dale Stott and Dan Reeves and myself, we would travel with our families and, go around and, and just to watch them develop, and in fact, we have a picture where it's probably about 14 boys, and I'd say 7 out of the 14 went to PA states.
Wow, that's
and,
amazing.
and I was, talking about this earlier, but, of course, one of the wrestlers, Pete Renda, I don't know if you know that name, but he wrestled at NC State, and he was 3rd in Division I Nationals.
Yep.
And, of course, they did an article about, Pete Renda. In the article, he mentions myself, who I was the first person to coach Pete. But he did recognize me because, he thanked, for his first coach as, a youth coach. And, of course, Steve Adam, who was the high school coach at that time. So that's cool. You get a wrestler, somebody you coached when they were a little kid, get to, be a 3rd in NCAAs.
It's amazing. Really fulfilling. It has to be fulfilling.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is.
Well, I appreciate everything you've done for wrestling. I mean, wrestling is one of those things. It gives, and gives, and it's great to have people like you giving back, whether it be through the youth or your granddaughter or grandsons. I really appreciate that. I think it's important. We're stronger together, right? Kind of like Planet of the Apes, stronger together a little bit. So I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the job fair. I'm really excited about that. Where I get to talk to a lot of wrestlers and talk about East Penn, and all the opportunities at East Penn. We're going to have our personnel department be a part of that, our human resource department be a part of that, and, obviously bring as many wrestlers into East Penn as possible because, I think that's a good, a winning, program there. And, again, more people we can bring in, the better.
Well, let's do this because this will be a perfect way to end this podcast. If you have a message to somebody that's considering jumping on this virtual career fair and you want them to visit East Penn, can you tell them what you're looking for, why it would be important, and what stands out about your company for them specifically?
Well, again, some of these things I already mentioned, but to be a part of a solid company, going to be celebrating 80 years of business. Family owned and operated. We really care about the people and the development of the people. It's an outstanding product and a lot of opportunities. And like for myself, all the different opportunities I had. You come in and you work hard. There's a lot of opportunities for promotions and advancements within the company. Whether you're in sales or whether you're in operations, logistics, even the engineering side of it. We're on the leading edge of all the new technologies. Lithium is obviously a buzzword, and stuff that the company's doing. So a great company and definitely a lot of opportunity.
I know I'm a little too old to go on the career fair, but you got my attention. If I can go back in time, maybe I'd look at that. But
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your time. That's another episode of Headgears to Handshakes, and I appreciate you joining us here with Bruce from East Penn Manufacturing.